Hello again, welcome to our Instructor Hangout. We've got Ben with us here. G'day Ben, it's been a while since we've seen you. How you been doing?
G'day Rick, how are you doing, sport? I'm fine, mate, thank you very much.
Very good.
I've been away for a little
Excellent.
trip, so I'm back now, looking forward to helping out.
Cool. So what we're going to go through in this video is we're going to go through some of the things that we've dug into throughout this section and get Ben's take on what we've been doing. Said at the start of this course, it's good to hear things from different perspectives, angles. So we're going to get Ben to give us his take on what we've been doing. And the first thing I want to dive into is a good meaty conversation. We've had some questions about state versus state versus state. And so we use the word state about 1,000 times, and a little bit of why have we got state? What does that mean? Just to touch on that and to get your thoughts, Ben, on how do we know, for example, that we can access our public method in the state class? What in here is telling us that we can access that? But first, a really quick note. When Ben and I were goofing around, we have commented out this line of code just while we're experimenting and talking. Don't comment out that line of code. Don't follow what we've done with that particular line. Leave it as it is. You don't need to comment it out. Okay, back to it.
Okay, so firstly I want you to pay attention to the colouring here and the capitalization. So state is saying that we want to make a variable called state with a small s, and it's of type state. Now, why are we calling it state? Why use the same word twice? Simply because as you get more experience, you will use the same word twice, because your eye will be attuned to two things: to the capitalization, which of course we're hoping that you are nice and good people and make your actual things, your instances, with lowercase. But the thing that's more robust than that is looking at this blue. This state is in blue, just like text is in blue here. All these things that are in blue are types of things. Input is a type, keycode's a type. All these things are types. So it's a variable of type state, and they both happen to have the name state. So
cool.
That's that bit.
Very good. Yeah, excellent. So that's one part, and then the next part is why. I've seen a couple of questions in the Q&A about why does this work? Why can we say that our text component.text, we're calling our method from our state class over here? Why is this state effective in allowing us to call this method?
Well, over in state.cs, if you pop over there for a second, we've said that when we make these state things, which for the moment, yeah, I understand that you guys haven't got the detail of exactly what a class is, and a lot of these details you're going to have to, remember how pictures used to load on the internet? They were fuzzy and then they get sharper and sharper and sharper and sharper. Now the internet's so fast they just appear, but they used to go fuzzy, then sharper, sharper, sharper. That's the way we're teaching you. We're not teaching you line by line, like, because the reason images used to do that is because you kind of got an overview really quickly and you could scroll down the page if you weren't interested. Same here. So we're giving you the overview and then we're going to drill into the detail on successive approaches. So what we're doing here in this other class is we're saying that it's public. A public method called getStateStory is available to anything that is a state instance. So we have this state class in blue. I've done it in red, but you get the idea. And then we make ourselves a little state variable here. It's now on this state variable we can say .getStateStory, etc. All right, so that's what's going on there. The reason that you can say back in your adventuregame.cs class .getStateStory is because the state, this state here is this word here, and it is of type state. And because it's type state, it has this public method on it. So that's kind of all you need to know at the moment. Well, unless there's another question, Rick.
Yeah, no, that's good for now. And you were saying we haven't dug a lot into class. And in upcoming sections, we're going to dig into that a bit more, or a lot more, I guess. We're going to dive into that a bunch. There's also another kind of conversation that we've been having throughout this whole section that's been about scriptable object. And there's been some great questions about the notion of here is game as a game object. And we can see very clearly we've got our script attached to it. So that brings the script into existence. That makes the script come alive because it's attached to this game object as an instance. Whereas this script here, state, is just hanging out. But when we create let me give ourselves a bit more screen real estate here. When we create our scriptable objects, you can see that the state script, the state class, is sitting on this asset file here. Do you want to give us your take on what's going on here from a different direction?
Yeah, so let's take it from the direction of where things are on the disk to keep it simple. So over on this game object, anything you do on that is being stored in the scene file. So that is just in your scene file, which will be in this folder over here. So anything you do on there stored in the scene until you get into prefabs, which we'll get into later, which are prefabricated objects. So when you make the changes to that, it's stored on there. Now, when it comes to these files down here, all of these state files that we've created, the point is what it's saying in the inspector here is, firstly, when you make one of these, you're just making a file on the disk. You can see it here. It's in a cell.asset. It's A2 in a cell.asset. So when you make one of these, you're literally just making a file on the disk. And the template that that file is based on is defined by this state script that we've made. So the state is just a template for it. It's like the form you're filling out, basically. And then here is the form showed to you in the inspector that gives you options to both specify text and to link to a couple of other states. So that's what's going on there. You're making a file on the disk to a given template. The template is the state.cs scriptable object class. It's a template for storing information in. Just like a Google form or a Wufoo form or a SurveyMonkey form. It's just a form.
Yeah, cool. And in your opinion, Ben, when should we be looking to say, let's just jump to scriptable objects? At this stage, people are going through the course and not yet familiar with, well, how do I make decisions? How do I problem solve? One of the things that I've been hitting on is, let's teach you how to problem solve. What's a nugget that we can be giving people at this point in terms of when they should be thinking, scriptable objects would be a good idea for my project versus I don't really like scriptable objects at the moment?
Okay, so two answers, I think, to that. Number one is, you won't know yet. You don't have enough. If you're brand new to coding and you're following us through, you don't have enough experience yet. So step one is watch us do something, right? Step two is start to follow along with us. Step three, later on in the learning journey, will be to be able to make those decisions for yourself. So don't expect to be able to make that decision yet. We're just introducing you to a possibility, all right? And then to answer more specifically, when you start to want to watch out for that type of stuff, is in code, you should never have magic numbers. We've started to talk about that. Any number that's not 0, 1, or 2 probably shouldn't be in code. Even 2 is questionable because it's some sort of number that contains information. It's a number of days of the week. It's something else. So that should be a parameter to your code. It should be something that you use to change the way your code works. So not buried deep inside the code file. And the same goes for words and strings of text. So putting all this story text in the code has a couple of problems with it. Firstly, it obfuscates, it makes unclear how the code works. And the other thing that it does is, if I'm working on the CS file, the C# file, trying to make the game do something, behave in a certain way, somebody else can't simultaneously work, if you want to work with a partner, on creating the story text, because they'd be clashing on the same file, and we'd have a lot of trouble reconciling those changes. So that's kind of the bottom line as to why we're using them here. And we want to introduce you to them really early, uncomfortably early for me in the design of this course to introduce it to you. But the point is that if we do that, then as you move forward, you'll start to question whenever you create a new script. In the future, in about 3 sections time, you will be ready to start questioning, I'm making a new script. Should it just be what comes out the box by default, which is this mono behavior thing, which is just what comes out the box? Should it be a scriptable object, which you're starting to see now, or should it be something else, which we'll cover later? So that's the point, is to get you in the habit of questioning the type of script that Unity just automatically gives you.
Yeah, that's a really great point about multiple people working on it, because you might have a friend you're teamed up with. The friend's going to be the story writer and you're going to be working on the functionality, for example. And the friend can be in there creating all sorts of great story and states and flow, and not at all impacting the fact that you're in here working on the script and getting some functionality into the game. That's pretty cool. Another thing that Ben and I were talking about just before we turned on the camera was our bracketing, our braces, and where things fit. So I want to touch on that just very briefly, Ben. What's important at this stage and what's not important at this stage, in your opinion, for people to be focused on when it comes to the layout, to white space, to their formatting?
So this is an interesting one. It's a bone of contention. So it's a Marmite point. You either love it or you hate it. I think two things. One thing actually matters is how the compiler interprets that code. And I'd really like you to be able to read code even if it's not perfectly formatted. Otherwise, when you even go to Unity sample code, it may not be perfectly formatted. If you find other people's code on the web, it's not going to be perfectly formatted. There is no perfect, but it may not be consistently formatted, right? Now, what you're seeing on the screen here is not currently consistently formatted, but it's okay, let go of it. Yes, of course, we should have a consistent code style, and yes, of course, it's good if we stick with a perfect and consistent code style. But to do that, you have to learn, as Rick says, to change the template, what gets spat out in terms of this code with start and update. There are spaces between the method name and the brackets here, but there aren't here. You know, this curly brace is here rather than here. Relax, it's okay. It all works in C#, it's all white space. It doesn't care. We know it's not 100% consistent. We, in the future of the course, will think about changing the template and really tightening that up. But the first thing you need to do is let go of perfect code formatting before you then start fully owning it, in my opinion. Because firstly, you need to make a decision about what code style you want to employ. There is no one code style that is the right code style. It's what's right for you. And secondly, you need to be not allergic to other people's code. You need to get in the habit of suppressing that urge to say, oh, it's not right. And remember, there's no right or wrong, there's just styles. It's not consistent is not good, but you need to get able to read code that is inconsistently styled. Otherwise, when you come to solve bigger problems later where you want to copy and paste or at least be inspired by other people's code, if you can't get over the, it's not perfectly consistent, you can lose out on a load of value that other people have created.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've just, as you were talking, I've just gone and formatted this to our preferred formatting, which is not to have any space between the update and the brackets here, and to have our curly braces on the next line. But there's a lot of people who prefer to do things like that, and they both work.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
do strive,
Also, the other thing,
for consistency in the code you write, but forgive inconsistency in others.
excellent, really good. The other thing I wanted to hit on in this Instructor Hangout is there's some parts of the design in this section that we've gone through pretty fast. For example, how to write a story, or how to come up with a story idea, or how to connect from one state to the next state. I've gone through that pretty quickly because we just don't have time in this course to dig too deep into design. People are here to learn programming, they're here to learn Unity, and they're here to learn how to make a game from start to finish. So we've skipped over some of that, and hopefully we'll have a narrative design course. If you really want one, then make some noise and we'll put that on the agenda to create one of those. But I've deliberately not spent too much time on that throughout this section because I know we just don't have time to dig into it too much.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being with us, guys. Do dive over to the community site and share your biggest takeaway, at least your biggest single takeaway from this Instructor Hangout. Let us know if you like these Instructor Hangouts. Hopefully you do. And we look forward to seeing you in the upcoming content.